Welcome to Gray Overload. I'm Anthony, and Intel has something coming on the horizon which I don't know if I'm completely sold on. I don't like this idea of having to buy this whole on demand side of things, but here we are, Intel on demand. Now, I've read a couple articles on this outside of where it was, and now I've seen that Intel has their pages up on it, as well as they have a GitHub page here. So let's take a look at this and let's dive in on this Intel on demand. So we have Intel on demand here, and they are saying offering flexible consumption compatibilities and the ability to scale performance and capacity in response to real-time demand. So if you look at this here, we'll jump over the GitHub page, and this is a family of processors that will support for Intel on demand, formerly as known as software-defined silicon, and this allows for the configuration of additional CPU features through a licensing activation process. So, and this is, Intel's public GitHub page where they're posting stuff. So you're going to take this and kind of see what it is. What I find interesting with this, where there are places in the enterprise industry that already does this sort of thing, but I'm going to also take the approach of the consumer side stuff. Intel already has a segmentation on their consumer side stuff already. Is Intel going to take the next step and go to this software defined hardware or silicon here and then start on the consumer side charging for features that are already in that processor, or if they get the graphics cards off the line, graphics cards? I can actually see that starting to go down the line. And I hope that Intel makes a change here, but also if you take a look at some of the Intel's financials of where they're headed and look at what Pat Gelsinger, the CEO, kind of has driven there, is that they're looking for bigger margins and more money. And one way to do that is with subscriptions, with additional features that you can charge later on after you've already sold the product that then will bring more money into the company after that initial sale, right? For hardware, there's really no, after you sell it, there's nothing else you can do but until that person wants to upgrade again to sell them another product. And this is their way into the market. I don't like this. I get where businesses may like this, where they can get in a lower product and as they need a feature, they can add on to it. But I also think that there's a dangerous road to go down where that's not necessarily needed. Businesses do go through, maybe if you're on a string type budget, this would be something for you. But businesses do have, certain buying options that they're able to get what they need up front so they don't have to reconfigure everything down the road, right? Especially if you're doing a bigger enterprise or going and it wanted something set up, you don't necessarily want to then have to reconfigure all those machines again down the road. I'm sure Intel's working on making it easier, but that's a whole nother thing. Do they start charging for firmware updates or firmware security updates? That could be a whole nother thing. That would open up, I think, a can of worms of different regulators around the world saying, well, we're going to treat this kind of like car safety issues. If you have a firmware safety issue on your processor, you're going to have to then provide those through a recall process, and you're gonna have to push those updates as well. That would be a whole nother can of worms. Can you imagine that on the consumer side as well? This is a dangerous slope to go down, and I'm not liking it. I understand and I get the explanation on the business side of things. I get the whole financial side where Intel gets to make more money, but when I buy a product, not only is it mine, but I expect like a CPU to be, if there's a major firmware update for security, that to be provided to me, not to have to me to go and spend more money on there. Is that something that happens, right? You can take this too far, and I don't, as much as people say, well, companies aren't going to take it too far, we see time and time again companies taking it too far. And this whole on demand stuff, I think, is one step of taking it too far. They have these different models, right? That you have this aviation model, which is adapt and changes to optimize workloads for Intel on Demand activation model. And they kind of do it here with your um, with what you're able to do. You know, you have it's supposed to be a one-time activation now, and this is just thinking out there. Let's say you're in the consumer mile and you resell that PC. Intel could easily, you know, have a login so to know what you kind of paid for on what processors. And if you resell that, since you resold it, reset it back to where they initially want it, and then resell all those features again. That's another way to make money. Not that I want to put stuff, but I'm sure they already thought about it, right? Security upgrades for software safeguard extensions, right? They have communications, storage suites, you know, quick assist technology, dynamic load balancer. You could even say this, you know, they have Intel Quick Sync today. What's stopping them from charging for that feature in the future? Um, or maybe a Quick Sync 2, just to, if you want the better Quick Sync, you have to pay for that. Uh, ECC, that's probably finally could come to the consumer platform, but you have to pay for it. You know, consumption model. It's you know, they have the providers here too. Um, all additional ways that these companies all here will be able to make an extra step of money along the way. I am not sold on this. This is a, to me, I want more people to get in and be enthused about the computing platform, to get to have the access to compute that be able to achieve whatever they want to do. Let's say they want a game, great, right? They have that. And, you know, what happens if Intel has a, you know, graphics card and they say, well, if you want the latest DirectX or Vulkan, here you have to buy the this latest feature. I get people are going to say that doesn't happen. Companies take it too far all the time, and if it ever does happen, don't go saying, "Oh, no one ever mentioned this," right? Because I didn't think this would happen. It always does. A company's going to take a step too far. They always do, and I don't get why, right? But this whole charging for things, I want these companies to compete, right? And as they compete, there are things that they compete on that are good and that make it better for the consumer. But sometimes when an idea gets introduced, let's say software-defined silicon, the other competitors also think that it's a good idea because they see it as a money-making operation throughout each quarter and a good return on their investors. Investors are in there, they're in to make money. The companies are there to make money. But then you go down this route of, hey, we have these new software-defined stuff. Let's take advantage of it. It's just, you know, when you're looking at this, what's going to come from all these things that they're putting in there is going to be something to watch going forward. And we're going to see it in enterprise first. Does it move to consumers? What I really want to know is what your thoughts are on this, right? I'm I'm of the thing of let's get, you know, maybe AMD and doesn't want to do it and they compete on better values and Intel has to change their modeling. That would be a best case scenario. But if AMD sees that a lot of people are buying new Intel CPUs with this at a lower cost and then coming in later, and you might probably going to see that through Intel's financials, AMD is probably going to change too to match that model, and then we're stuck because you're not going to be able to break out of it, and that's the opportunity that then they'll have to move into consumers. That's my thought. I like to see you provide full benefit of that to everybody, and then go on from there, right? Everyone is be able to get that benefit of that processor. They're able to capture it, whatever they want to use it for. Let's say research, let's say a new invention, or even gaming or whatever else, right? There's a ton of different things that can be done there. And then we move on from there. So with that, leave it in the comments below what you think about this Intel on Demand. Really hope it doesn't, it could go as far as, hey, everyone's going to want to start doing something like this, right? Motherboards, everybody. Because you get software, you get a recurring cost, or you get something where you can get another cost out of a product, and everyone's going to want that extra money. It's us as consumers are going to have to say no to this. It's just how do we do it? So leave it in the comments below. I want to thank you guys all for watching. Thank you for taking the time to help support Grow Everyone and helping this channel grow. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.